Have you ever wished there was an easy way to become rich that anyone could do with no prior experience? Well, guess what? There is. And before you click off thinking this is some kind of scam, we're not pumping the latest crypto coin or trying to sell you an online course that costs $997. We're instead referring to index funds. Index fund investing is super easy, incredibly effective, and in most cases actually ends up beating the profits of professional investors. A study published in 2020 showed over a 15 period, nearly 90% of actively managed investment funds failed to beat the market. Simply put, experts who spend a full-time job trying to beat the market are unable to beat most investors that use the index fund strategy. So today, let's discuss what an index fund actually is, which ones are best for you, and how you can use them to grow your wealth right after you smash that like button on this video. The world has changed over the last couple of years, and now most people only seem interested in the stocks and crypto going to the moon. We get it. It's exciting to see your money multiplied quickly, but the harsh truth is lots of people who invest in more than they can afford to lose some risky investments. This means that when a crash happens, and believe me, it always does, many people will be left with nothing. We've seen this happen time and time again, and the people that make it through the storm are usually the ones that also invest for the long term. So we like to think of index funds as our secret weapon, as they mean that you always have a backup for when the worst happens. So let's break down what index funds actually are. Think of a bag of Skittles as lots of different individual companies. One is Tesla, one is Apple, and one is Coca-Cola. Now, as an investor, you could cherry pick the ones that you like the most. This is called investing in individual stocks. However, if these companies go bankrupt or crash in value, then you're in trouble. The great thing about index funds is that with one simple purchase, you can own all the Skittles in the bag without having to deal with all the hassle of creating your own hand-selected portfolio or having some expensive managers do it for you. This is because they're passively managed, which means they're extremely cost-effective. The truth is that if a stock or crypto could give you these kinds of returns, then it could also swing back the other way. The great thing about index funds is if one company from within the bag of Skittles is having a bad time, you've still got all the other Skittles and companies holding it up. An index fund aims to track something called an index, which is a lot like a sports leaderboard. They can rank company size, location, business type, and even currencies. So because there's so many choices, let's pretend we're in a supermarket and we're going to walk you through our 3.5 favorite baskets of stocks to invest in. The reason we've added a 0.5 is because there's a new kid on the block. Remember, we're not financial advisors. These are just investments that we really believe in. So please do your own research before investing. Basket number one is, of course, the S&P 500 index. This is the big daddy of index funds, and you've probably heard people talking about it before. On average, the S&P 500 has returned investors 8 to 10% per year, which isn't anything crazy compared to the latest crazy like Shiba Inu, but it is pretty consistent and much less volatile. That sounds great, but what's inside the basket? Well, the S&P 500 is a top 500 American company. In order to be included in the S&P 500, a company must meet certain requirements, including achieving a specific market cap, having the majority of its shares in public hands, and being a public company for at least a year. So if you buy one share of the S&P 500, you will actually own a small piece of Amazon, Tesla, Apple, PayPal, and so much more. The ultimate flex is telling your friends that you own all of these companies. One of the benefits of the S&P 500 is that it's widely spread across many great companies in the USA. To be honest, they're more like worldwide companies now, since the creation of the internet has blurred the lines between borders and made the world much more interconnected. So you have the S&P 500. Now, which one do I pick? Well, that depends on where you live in the world and what investing platform you're using. The best we found in the USA is the VFIAX Index Fund or the VOO ETF. The best in the UK would probably be the VUSI ETF, but there are tons of other ETFs that also track the S&P 500. One thing to look out for is that the dividends are reinvested into the fund. The only real difference between an index fund and an ETF, which is otherwise known as an exchange traded fund, is that these can be purchased or sold at any time throughout the day, just like a stock, as long as the market is open, of course. That's why they're exchange traded is in the name. Now, index funds can only be purchased in full once per day. So for example, if the price for the fund is $500, you must pay $500. Whereas an ETF can also be purchased in fractional shares, which means you don't have to buy a full share and you can instead invest whatever amount you like. This is great if you're just starting out or you want a dollar cost averaging. Really and truly, there isn't a huge difference between an index fund and an ETF, so just consider which one is best for you and take the plunge. Basket number 2 is the Total Stock Market Index. The Total Stock Market Index is, well, the definition of diversification. You really can't get any more skin in the game for a lower cost than this. So if you want to invest for a long period of time without having to check or even think about it, then this is most likely the fund for you. Investing in everything means you can experience gains across the entire market. And unless a crazy crash happens, you should be okay. But even if it does crash, with time things bounce back. But the downside to this index is that it depends on the entire market trending upwards. This means that there could be an individual stock that you really believe in that goes all the way to the moon, but you might not experience those gains because that one stock doesn't play much of a role within the index fund. If you're an active investor who likes to try to mess with options, this index fund is probably great to have as a safety net that you regularly invest into. The best we found in the USA is the VTSAX Index Fund and the VTI ETF, and the best in the UK is the VWRL ETF. These are Vanguard index funds, but you should be able to buy them on most platforms, including public and free trade. The third basket is the Emerging Markets Index. Emerging markets are predicted by some experts to be on the rise. And whether you agree with this or not, we think it's important to have at least a little bit of exposure to these markets. It's all well and good buying the S&P 500, but when China or another emerging country has some great gains, you'll end up missing out. Given that there is a lot of business carried out in China, you can see why investing in emerging markets is a good idea. Emerging market funds are definitely the most risky type of index fund that we've discussed so far. These funds include stocks from lots of different growing markets and can be very heavy with Chinese companies. Taking a look at the list of the largest economies in the world, a lot of them are emerging markets, so it just makes sense to throw a little bit of money in for diversification. Also, the population of these emerging markets is absolutely huge, so we think there's certainly potential for growth, not only in their own countries but in exports as well. As I said before, these are definitely more risky plays, but countries are adapting and evolving, so it's worthwhile investing in their future. The best we found in the USA is the VEIEX, that's a mouthful, ETF, and in the UK, the VFEM ETF. They don't make it any easier there, do they? Basket number 3.5 is a bit of a bonus one as it's the Metaverse Index, which is very current. We would recommend watching the movie Ready Player One, which shows the crazy possibilities of the metaverse. This will make you even more confident that the profit potential is insane. But of course, the metaverse isn't here yet, and it's all just speculation at the moment. Also, the top 10 companies in the Meta ETF are not all selections that we would make, so that's definitely something to look out for and consider. This ETF also has quite a high expense ratio of 0.75%, which may not sound a lot, but trust me, is considerably more than a lot of the funds that we've already talked about. The best way forward is to look at what stocks the Meta ETF holds and then buy the ones that you like individually. But if this sounds like too much hassle, then ETF is definitely something to consider. When we first heard about index funds, we thought that it was fantastic. because we'd always thought investing was only for the rich, but the most important thing is getting started. Index funds can give you the ability to start investing when you know very little, which means that you can get the snowball rolling. So if you're sitting on the fence, then now is good a time as ever to start your long-term investing journey. For more advice and tips, be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn your notifications on so that you can be the first to be aware of these. We look forward to seeing you in the next video.